friends. I'm Karen, and this is the Family Food for Moms podcast. We're talking about inspiration for family cooking and dining. This is part 2 of cooking meat as part of the Basic Cooking Skills You Should Master series. Last time we talked about techniques that help your meat to be tasty and tender and juicy. We talked about bringing meat to room temperature before cooking it, and then searing it, not overcrowding the pan, possibly using a thermometer, seasoning it well, and then resting it after cooking. Then we talked about how best to cook red meat, beef and lamb, what to cook it in. Today we're going to go on to chicken and fish and a few other items. What are the best methods for cooking various kinds of chicken, various cuts? We've mentioned whole chicken, either in the slow cooker or in the oven. Oven for crispiness, slow cooker for tenderness, or a combination of the two. Also, the air fryer is quick and easy for a smaller piece of chicken with crispy skin. So then also, if you're going to do pieces of chicken, if you're going to do the drumsticks, the thighs, with various sauces or seasonings on top, the oven works great. Put it in a casserole dish in the oven with the lid off for cooking. Or you can do that in the crock pot, but again, it will be maybe less crispy and more soft. Then chicken breasts you can do in the oven with a bit of oil and salts and seasonings like smoked paprika, chili powder, mixed herbs. And then you cook that in the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then you can shred it and use it for wraps or on bread sliced or in a chicken pasta dish, anything like that. And then the pan is also nice. It works great for thin pieces of chicken. So sometimes it's good to slice your chicken breasts in half. Again, this is similar to on the grill. And then marinate them for the grill or just season them for the pan and give that a good cook. If you're cooking thicker chicken breasts, then in a similar way to the steak we talked about last time, you can sear it in the pan and then put the pan into the oven with a bit of butter and cook it for 20 minutes there. And it gives it a nice outside sear and a complete cook on the inside. But the thinner slices or cutting it into pieces works great in a pan. You don't want too much water to build up in the pan because then you're going to be boiling your meat instead of searing it or cooking it. So you may need to drain your pan along the way, and you would just put a touch of oil in and no liquid when you're cooking in the pan, cooking chicken in the pan. You can cut your chicken up to use it in a stir fry and then toss and turn it in the pan with a bit of sesame oil and whatever Asian seasonings you like. We use tamari, you can use soy sauce. So chicken in the pan is great, thin or chopped. And then you can always add your vegetables and continue cooking with the chicken in the pan. It's great to have a one-pot meal sometimes when you don't have to add anything else. And then you can add your noodles at the end. Just pour some boiling water over them and then add them to the pan to stir fry them with similar flavoring. So a stir fry meal is great using some chicken that's been chopped, some vegetables, and then some noodles. We like to use rice noodles or vermicelli, which is the very thin noodles that hardly need any cooking. But the noodles need some flavor from salt and soy sauce, etc. You can also do chicken fajitas in a pan or in the oven. You could do it on a sheet pan and put your chicken breasts and your red pepper pieces on the pan, maybe slice up your chicken a little bit, and then do that in the oven. Or you can do chicken in the pan, add the red peppers and seasonings. You often get a nice pre-made Mexican spice mix or a fajita spice mix, and you add that all in the pan while it's cooking, and then you serve it in fajitas. So it's important not to overcook your chicken, whether it's in the oven or the pan or even the crock pot, because it will be dry. So you want to get it to where it's all white inside and not pink. If you're cooking something in the oven, chicken breasts, you can cut them in half to check if they're cooked through and not pink on the inside. Chicken breasts are the most unforgiving. They'll get dry easily, so you can't overcook them, especially in the oven. If you want a more forgiving cut, that would be the thighs, but especially the meat on the bone with the skin, that's going to keep the moisture inside, and the meat will definitely be juicier and less tender. Also, you can marinate your chicken breasts if you want them to be less dry and more flavorful. And then once you've marinated it, you cook it in the oven. So we usually put chicken in a glass container, marinate on it, whether it's involving some kind of dairy or oil and the seasonings. We put the lid on it and put that in the fridge for 6 hours to overnight. But less, if you have less time, is fine. And then you just take the lid off the glass dish. Well, in fact, first let the chicken come to room temperature with the lid on to keep flies away, etc. Then take the lid off, put it in the oven with the marinade surrounding it, and that will cook as a lovely tender meat in the oven. Then let's talk about fish. So fish is quite sensitive, so you don't want to overcook it because it will be dry. The way to know when it's done is it flakes easily. It's starting to get overdone if it's getting that white substance around it. So you should take it out quickly if you see that. Also, the flesh turns opaque, so it's not see-through anymore. So you'll flake it easily with a fork when it's done. So fish, my favorite method is the oven. It's so easy. So if you have some oven casserole dishes, glass or Corningware, and then you put your fish fillets, either salmon, trout, cod, hake, you put your fillets in the pan, skin side down, if it has skin on it. And then you season. You season like crazy. The better you season your fish, the better it's going to taste. So you want to add salt. You want to add a bit of pepper. You can add something like smoked paprika, chili powder, onion powder for that kind of flavor. You can add herbs like thyme. Thyme is a great one for fish. And then you're going to squeeze lemon over all your fish. Generously lemon juice over all your fish. And then a little olive oil or butter, pats of butter on top of the fish. Taste amazing. You can sprinkle a little almond flour on your fish fillets or breadcrumbs if you eat bread, gluten. So you want to make sure that you've got that lemon juice and that butter to get the nice flavor, and then the salt, and then everything else adds extra flavor or texture. And then generally it's about 20 minutes in the oven. You can do it in a pan in a similar way. So if you're going to cook fish in a pan, you put the skin down first, quite a hot pan, and you got to move it quite soon so the skin doesn't stick to the pan. Then it starts to crisp up that skin, and then you can add your seasonings on top. Again, salt, pepper, and herbs, maybe some spices. And then you can put some butter in the pan and baste the fish while it's cooking, and you'll see how the cooked part slowly goes up. You'll see the side of the fish, it looks more and more cooked. You can flip it if you want to, but to get that nice crispy skin, it's easier to baste your fish with the butter to cook the top part. You can flip it if you'd like to. Just a thought here, when you marinate meat, it helps to make it more tender. And in a similar way, brining meat does that. Now, it's a little harder to do this yourself, but there are cuts of meat at the grocery store that come ready brined. For example, a corned beef cut of meat. So then when you cook it, it's very flavored and it is more tender. So look for brined meat. So fish, then the next thing you could do is the steamer. With very delicate fish, this works well. You don't want it to be too much steam or too hot, but just a gentle steaming for about 10 minutes, and that should be ready to flake. Remember to add your flavor again. You can add it after steaming or before, but mainly just salt while you're steaming would be great. But it can cause the fish to lose some moisture that you want to keep in it. So steaming it and then seasoning it in this case works well. And the air fryer would work in a similar way to the oven, just with smaller portions. So you look for your flesh to turn opaque and for it to be easily flaked with a fork. Fish does cook fast, so if you've got thin fillets, then even 6 to 10 minutes can be enough time. So check it often. And then lastly, bacon and sausages. Bacon is great in the oven. It's the easiest way to get it evenly crispy. We'll take a baking sheet, maybe some baking paper, or parchment paper, and then lay out the bacon and then cook it in the oven for about 15 minutes. You got to keep an eye on it. You want it to get crispy but not overdone. You've got good control if you cook bacon in a pan. It can create a lot of smoke, which you don't really want. And you have to watch it the whole time, but it works just as well. Then sausages, browning in a pan is great because you get lots of flavor, kind of moving the sausages around a lot as they're cooking. You get that lovely browned flavor over the sausages. Sausages also work well on the grill. If you add a little bit of barbecue sauce at the end, it gives them extra flavor. You can also do sausages in the oven. They take quite a while to go brown or to look crispy, and then you can brush the barbecue sauce on afterwards and possibly put them back in the oven for that to caramelize for just a minute or two. Sausages are great in the air fryer too. Chipolatas for breakfast. Delicious. So, a quick summary for appliances: the Instant Pot for tough cuts of meat, beef, stews, to make shredded meat, like shredded pork is great in the Instant Pot. You cook it as a whole pork shoulder and then you shred it afterwards. And then you put it back into a thickened sauce that you thicken on the saute setting in the Instant Pot. Slow cooker is great for lamb, for chicken, anything that you want to be flavored and tender. The air fryer is great for smaller portions, chicken thighs on the bone, wings, sausages, small steaks, etc. Then the oven is great for roasts, bacon, chicken pieces like chicken breasts, and for fish. The stovetop pan is great for steaks, thinner chicken breasts, and fish, like a piece of salmon. So try them out, see what you like best, and then they'll have your go-to meat cooking plans. So your simple rule is tender cuts, hot and fast, tougher cuts or big roasts, slow and slow. Fish would be gentle, and then not to overcook your chicken. That would be very dry. Remember to rest your meat. Remember not to cook straight from the fridge. And remember to sear your meat. Cooking your fish too long will make it rubbery. We want it nice and tender. So generally for all these things, except the steak, you're going to cook at 180 in the oven. Bacon, chicken breast, roast, whatever you're doing, sausages, that works well. 180 degrees Celsius, which is about 360 degrees Fahrenheit. Your steak in the oven is going to be at a higher temperature after you've seared it. That would be about 220 Celsius or 430 Fahrenheit. Then you're going to cook it to an internal temperature of about 125 degrees Fahrenheit, which will be kind of medium rare. And as you rest it, it'll increase by 5 to 10 degrees. That would be about 50 degrees Celsius internal temperature. So the thermometers we've got, the meat thermometers, you stick the points into the meat in the pan in the oven. You need to have space in the oven because they're quite tall. Stick it so that it goes into the center of the piece of meat, the beef tenderloin. And then that is attached to wires with the little thermometer reader that sits outside the oven, so you can keep checking it. And you can also set it to beep once it's ready. So then you can take it out and let it rest. So a great meat thermometer is a real help for that kind of meat. A great instructional recipe for cooking beef tenderloin, in other words, a cut of beef fillet, would be on downshiftology.com. That's Lisa Bryan. That's how I learned to cook what seems like an intimidating piece of meat, but is actually so easy and so delicious. So she walks you through how to make the garlic butter with herbs, and then how to sear, first to tie up your meat with string, salt it, then sear it, add your butter on top, add the meat thermometer, put it in the oven at that high temperature of 220 or 430 Fahrenheit, and then wait until it comes to about 125 degrees. Then you let it rest and you slice it, and you've got delicious fillet steak pieces. So I'll leave a link, but on downshiftology.com, just search for easy beef tenderloin. Just a last note about cooking in a pan. You need to leave it on one side for a while and not flip it too often. So if it's chicken breast, it'll be 5 to 7 minutes per side, and a steak a bit less, maybe 3 to 4 minutes per side, depending on the thickness. And then you could put that in the oven to finish. In the pan, fish is going to be the least time, 3 to 5 minutes per side, unless you're leaving it on one side and basting it. And it will be 6 to 8 minutes for that lamb. So I hope you have fun trying out some new ways of cooking your meat, trying some marinating, remembering to leave it to come to room temperature and rest afterwards. Try out the beef tenderloin if you're brave. And remember to have fun, to enjoy yourself. Hopefully you'll have some delicious food. Also, if you're listening to this on a podcast app, you may not know that on our website, familyfoodformoms.com, we have the transcript written out nicely for each episode, which may be easier to read than your podcast app transcript. So you can look there while you're listening if you need to remember some things or be reminded of them and not have to write them down. Also, remember our recipe book, Elegant Easy Appetizers. You can find that on our website as well. Lots of very easy to make, very elegant looking appetizers, which I hope you'll love. Thanks for listening today. I'll see you next time.